So today we're going to be starting a new unit, and we are going to be talking about rational numbers. With rational numbers in this unit, we're going to be focused on adding and subtracting rational numbers. And today's lesson is lesson number 1. I'm going to start with the absolute value and opposites for our discussion today. So first there's a warm-up. And what you need to do is you need to compare the values using less than or greater than, just so we can kind of gauge where you're at with working with integers. So pause the video, complete the warm-up, and then come back and watch to see if you have the correct answers. So if you'll notice, 12 is less than 14. For number 2, 36 is greater than 26. For number 3, negative 2 is greater than negative 5. This one probably got some people. Remember, the closer to 0, the bigger the number. Number 4, negative 15 is less than negative 8. That's kind of like number 3, closer to 0, the bigger the number. Number 5, 13 is greater than negative 10. And number 6, negative 20 is less than 19. So to begin today, we have a lot of vocabulary to think about. So if we're talking about absolute value and opposite numbers, the first thing we need to know is what we call the types of numbers that you'll see on a number line. Those numbers are a special type of number in math, and we call them integers. When I think of integers, I think of number line numbers. Number line numbers. Because they're things you would see on the number line. Positive numbers, negative numbers, but you're not going to see decimals or fractions and stuff like that. Our next one is two numbers that are the same distance from 0, but on opposite sides of 0. Okay, so here's our number line. Here's 0. It'd be the number here and the number here. They're both 3 hops from 0, but they're on opposite sides, and those are called opposites. And then we need an example of opposites. And so really remember, you're thinking of a negative and a positive number, but they're the same number. One's negative, one's positive. So I'm going to do my favorite, which is negative 16 and 16. And those are opposite numbers. We also have to think about another idea. And our next idea is right here, absolute value. So in our box we can write absolute value. And absolute value is very important, and it's kind of cool. The absolute value of an integer is the distance between the number and 0 on a number line. So it's the distance between the number and 0. The absolute value is written with those 2 straight lines around it. And so I know last year you guys talked about hopping when you talked about absolute value. So the absolute value of negative 4. There we have negative 4, and we have 0. We have to count how many hops there are. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's why our answer is 4. You can't have negative hops. When you have an absolute value, your answer is always positive. Okay? So remember that as you go through this. Also, if we look at the absolute value of 4, here's 4, here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's still 4 hops. Our answer is 4. So even though in the absolute value we have opposite numbers, we have a negative 4 and a 4, they're both 4 hops from 0. And so they both equal a positive 4. Here we have a couple examples to think about. We have to find the absolute value of 2. Here's how it's written in those straight lines. So if we have 0, we have 2. Think about how many hops. 1, 2. 2 hops. Notice our answer is positive because it's always positive. In the next example, we have the absolute value of -3. So -3 in those straight lines. Here's -3, here's 0. 1, 2, 3. 3 is our answer. It's 3 hops from 0. Notice our answers are positive. And last, we have some practice. So I'll do numbers 1 and 2. Then you'll pause the video and do 3 and 4 in both situations. The first one is asking us to find the absolute value. Remember, it's how far it's from 0. So you could draw a number line if you need to. The absolute value of 7. So here's 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here it would be 7. It'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hops. So the absolute value of 7 is 7. I know -1 is 1 from 0. The absolute value of -1 is 1. Looking down on the bottom, finding the opposites of the numbers. Remember opposites? If it's a positive, the opposite is negative. If it's a negative number, its opposite's a positive. So the opposite of 4 is simply -4. And the opposite of -9 would be +9. Pause the video, come back and check your answers. So looking at the absolute value, numbers 3 and 4. The absolute value of -5 is +5, and the absolute value of 14 is +14. Notice when we find absolute value, our answers are always positive. That is not the case when we are working with opposites. If we look at number 3, the opposite of a -21 is +21. And the opposite of positive 678 is -678. And lastly, we're going to talk about comparing values. So here, when we compare, remember you're going to use your less than symbol, greater than, or equal to. And so what I think is easiest when you compare numbers is to use a number line and to remember your absolute value and what it means. So if we are comparing 1 and -4, we know 1 is just 1. And the absolute value of -4, we first have to figure out what that equals. Absolute value of a -4, it's 4 hops from 0, so it equals 4. So on my number line, I'm going to mark 4. So if I'm comparing 1 and the absolute value of -4, I know that 1 is less than 4, so I can say 1 is less than the absolute value of -4. Go ahead and try those 4 examples on the bottom on your own. Looking at my answers, I first went through and figured out what the absolute value of the numbers were. So looking at number 5, the absolute value of -2 was 2, and 2 is greater than -1. I did the same for the rest of them. So number 6, -7 is less than the absolute value of 6. Number 7, absolute value of 10 is less than 11. And with number 8, 9 is equal to the absolute value of -9.